I've always found it strange how easily we cling to the idea that everything must happen for a reason. It's comforting, isn't it? The thought that there's a deeper order to the chaos we live in. That the heartbreaks, the failures, the betrayals, and even the tragedies are all somehow necessary, part of a grander design that will one day make sense. But in moments of raw suffering, when the noise of hope quiets and you are left alone with the truth of what has happened to you, doesn't this belief start to feel hollow? When the walls of your life crumble, and no word, no scripture, no comforting platitude can explain why it happened to you, what then? We are creatures of meaning. We crave it like oxygen. Without it, we suffocate in the randomness of the universe. But what if the meaning we cling to is nothing more than a story we tell ourselves, a fragile construct built to shield us from the unbearable weight of uncertainty? What if everything happens for a reason is not a truth about the universe, but a truth about us? Think about it. When something good happens, we rarely question why. We accept it, even celebrate it, as though it were owed to us. We might call it luck, merit, or even divine reward. But when the tables turn and life deals us an unbearable blow, suddenly we demand answers. Why me? Why now? Why this? And when no answer comes, we invent one. We say it was fate, or karma, or God's plan. Or we latch onto the Nova effect, the idea that even the worst moments in our lives might set off a chain of events that eventually lead to something better. But are these explanations truths, or are they just coping mechanisms? Here's the uncomfortable reality: the universe does not owe us meaning. The earthquake that destroyed your house, your body, and your sense of security, it didn't happen to teach you a lesson. It didn't happen to make you stronger. It didn't happen to lead you to some hidden treasure of spiritual growth. It happened because the Earth's tectonic plates shifted, as they have for billions of years, indifferent to the lives caught in their wake.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The pain you're feeling now is not part of some cosmic plan, it's just pain. And yet here you are searching for a reason, trying to make sense of what feels so senseless. Why? What is it within us that cannot accept the possibility of a meaningless event? I think it's because meaning is the anchor that keeps us moored in the sea of chaos. Without it, we drift. We lose ourselves. But here's the paradox: meaning is not something we find. It's something we create. The earthquake did not happen for a reason, but you can give it one. You can decide what it means. You can decide how it will shape you. And in that act of creation, you reclaim your power over a universe that often feels utterly indifferent to your existence. But this is not an easy truth to accept. It requires us to let go of the comforting illusion that life is fair, that good things happen to good people, and that our suffering has a purpose beyond what we assign to it. It requires us to face the possibility that there is no grand design, no cosmic justice, no ultimate reason for why things happen the way they do. And yet, it is in this very act of letting go that we find our freedom. Because if nothing happens for a reason, then we are free to create our own reasons. We are free to decide what matters and what does not. We are free to write the story of our lives, even in the face of chaos. But let me ask you this: can you live with that freedom? Can you carry the weight of a life that has no inherent meaning, knowing that it is up to you to create it? Can you accept that the same randomness that brought you joy and success is also capable of bringing you grief and loss, and that neither is more deserved than the other? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. I think of the Nova effect, a term that captures the unpredictable ripples of cause and effect. A tragic event today might lead to unforeseen blessings tomorrow. A missed opportunity might open the door to something greater. And yet, the opposite is also true. What seems like fortune today might sow the seeds of future pain. The Nova effect reminds us that we cannot see the full picture. We cannot predict how the threads of our lives will weave together. But does that mean we should stop trying? Should we simply resign ourselves to the randomness of it all and stop searching for meaning? I don't think so. To live is to hope, even when hope feels irrational. To live is to give meaning to the meaningless, to find purpose in the chaos, to write our own stories, even when the ink runs dry. The reasons we give to the events of our lives, they are not truths. They are choices. And in making those choices, we reclaim our agency. We say to the universe, you may not care about me, but I care about me. And that is enough, but let me ask you something even more difficult. What if the meaning you create is never recognized by others? What if the reasons you give to your suffering are dismissed, misunderstood, or ignored? Can you still hold on to them? Can you still find value in the story you've written, even if no one else reads it? This, I think, is the ultimate test of our resilience to find meaning, not in the approval or validation of others, but in the act of creation itself. To say, this is my life, and I will give it the meaning it deserves, even if no one else sees it. And yet, there is a danger here. In our quest to make sense of our lives, we can become trapped by the very meanings we create. We can cling so tightly to our stories that we lose sight of the reality in front of us. We can convince ourselves that our suffering is justified because it will lead to something better, only to find that it doesn't. And when that happens, we are left with nothing but disillusionment. So how do we balance the need for meaning with the reality of randomness? How do we hold on to hope without being blinded by it? I think the answer lies in humility. In recognizing that our stories are just that, stories. They are not the ultimate truth. They are not the final word. They are tools we use to navigate a world that is often beyond our understanding. And like any tool, they must be wielded with care. We must be willing to revise them, to let go of the ones that no longer serve us, and to embrace the uncertainty that lies beyond them. So here you are, lying in a hospital bed, your body broken, your future uncertain. The reasons you once gave to your life, the stories you told yourself about who you were and where you were going, may no longer make sense. And that's okay, because the pen is still in your hand. You can write a new story, one that acknowledges the pain and the randomness of what has happened to you, but also leaves room for hope, for growth, for the possibility that something meaningful can still emerge from the chaos. But let me leave you with one final question. If everything happens for a reason, and that reason is one you create, what kind of story do you want to write? What kind of meaning do you want to give to your life? And can you find the courage to write it, even when the ink runs dry? We left off with a question, if everything happens for a reason, and that reason is one you create, what kind of story do you want to write? The weight of this question is immense, isn't it? Because it implies that the responsibility for meaning something we often wish to be handed to us by fate, God, or the universe is entirely ours. But let's sit with that weight for a moment. Let's not rush to cast it aside as burdensome or unfair. What if this responsibility is not a punishment, but a gift? What if it is the very thing that makes us human? I wonder about the human need to make sense of things. It's relentless, isn't it? Even in the face of the most devastating tragedies, we search for meaning like a thirsty traveler searches for water in a desert. But have we ever stopped to ask why? Why do we need things to happen for a reason? Why do we resist the idea that some events, perhaps most events, might simply be random? Is it because randomness terrifies us? Is it because the absence of reason feels like an indictment of our own insignificance? Think about it. If the earthquake that destroyed your house and brought you to the brink of death has no reason, what does that say about your place in the universe? What does that say about your story? We are conditioned to believe that life is a narrative, with a beginning, middle, and end. We see ourselves as the protagonists, the center of the tale. But what if life is not a story at all? What if it is simply a series of disconnected events, strung together not by meaning but by chance? Could you accept that? Could you live with the knowledge that your life is not a carefully crafted novel, but a chaotic, unscripted reality? This is not an easy truth to confront. I struggle with it myself. I want to believe that my life matters, that the things I've experienced, both the joys and the sorrows, are part of something larger, something purposeful. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that meaning is not something we find, waiting for us like a hidden treasure. It is something we build brick by brick, moment by moment. And like any construction, it is fragile. It can collapse under the weight of our expectations. Let's return to the Nova effect for a moment. The idea that one seemingly random event can set off a chain of consequences so vast, so intricate, that its full impact can never be fully understood. It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? Because it suggests that even the smallest moments in our lives can have profound, far-reaching effects. But it also reminds us of something deeply unsettling, that we are not in control. The Nova effect operates independently of our intentions, our desires, our plans. It is a reminder that the universe is vast, complex, and indifferent to our individual lives. But here's the paradox: the very randomness of the Nova effect is what gives us the opportunity to create meaning. Imagine if life were completely predictable, if every cause had an obvious effect, if every event had a clear and logical explanation. Would we still feel the need to search for meaning? Or would we simply accept our lives as they are, without question or reflection? I think it is the unpredictability of life, the moments that shock us, the events that defy explanation, that force us to confront the deeper questions. And in doing so, they give us the chance to grow, but growth is not guaranteed. Pain does not automatically lead to wisdom. Tragedy does not inherently make us stronger. These are choices we must make. And they are not easy choices. When you are lying in a hospital bed, your body broken, your future uncertain, the last thing you want to hear is that you have a choice. It feels like an insult, doesn't it? As though your suffering is somehow your fault, or that you're expected to transform it into something beautiful. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the meaning of your suffering is not fixed. It is not predetermined. It is something you have the power to shape. But let me ask you this: what happens when the meaning you try to create doesn't hold up? What happens when the reasons you give to your pain feel hollow, forced, or inadequate? Do you give up? Do you resign yourself to the randomness of it all? Or do you keep searching, keep creating, even in the face of uncertainty? This, I think, is one of the hardest questions we face as human beings, because it requires us to confront the limits of our own understanding. It requires us to accept that we may never find the answers we are looking for, and to keep going anyway. I think about the people who have told you that your tragedy happened for a reason, that it was God's will, or part of the universe's plan, or a necessary step on your journey. Do they truly believe that? Or are they simply trying to comfort you and themselves in the face of something they cannot comprehend? And does it matter? Does it matter whether the reasons we give to our lives are true or merely comforting? Here's what I believe: truth and comfort are not mutually exclusive. The truth is that the earthquake that destroyed your house and your body did not happen for a reason. It was a random, natural event, indifferent to your existence. But the comfort lies in this: you have the power to give it a reason. You have the power to decide what it means, how it will shape you, and what kind of story it will become a part of. But let's not oversimplify this. Creating meaning is not a one-time act. It is a process, one that requires patience, courage, and resilience, and it is not always successful. There will be days when the meaning you've created feels inadequate, when the reasons you've given to your life seem flimsy in the face of your pain. On those days, you may feel like giving up, and that's okay. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to doubt. It's okay to feel like the weight of it all is too much to bear. Because in those moments of doubt and struggle, you are still living. You are still fighting. And that in itself is an act of meaning. So where does this leave us? Are we the authors of our lives or merely characters in a story written by chance? I think we are both. We cannot control the events that happen to us, but we can control how we respond to them. We can decide what they mean, how they will shape us, and what kind of story we want to tell. And in doing so, we reclaim our power in a universe that often feels indifferent to our existence. But let me ask you one final question for now. If the meaning of your life is something you create, not something you find, what kind of meaning do you want it to have? What kind of story do you want to leave behind? And can you find the courage to write that story, even when the world around you seems to be falling apart? If the meaning of life is something we create, not something we discover, then what kind of creators are we? Are we careful architects, meticulously designing every brick of our story, or are we impulsive artists, throwing paint against the canvas of existence and hoping it turns into something coherent? Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. We live in a world that is both chaotic and ordered, both predictable and unpredictable, and we are constantly negotiating between these extremes. But what does it mean to negotiate with life itself? What does it mean to confront chaos and find something worth holding on to, even when everything seems to be slipping through your hands? Here's a thought I keep coming back to: much of what happens to us in life is beyond our control. This is not a comforting idea, but it is an honest one. The earthquake that destroyed your house, your promotion at work, your chance meeting with the person who would become your friend or lover, all of these things were shaped by forces far greater than you. But what is within your control is how you respond. And in that response lies not just your survival, but your power. This is the silent dialogue between chaos and choice. Life throws its unpredictable events at us, and we answer, not with certainty, but with resolve. We ask ourselves, what now? What do I do with this? What does this mean for me? But here's the thing that makes this dialogue so difficult: chaos doesn't care how you respond. It doesn't listen to your plans or your reasons. It simply is. And yet, we speak back to it over and over again, refusing to be silenced. Why? What drives us to keep responding to a universe that so often feels indifferent to us? I think it's because we understand deep down that even though we can't control life, we can shape it. Even though we can't prevent suffering, we can decide what that suffering will mean. But let's not romanticize this process. It's not easy. It's not clean. There will be times when your efforts to create meaning feel futile, when the chaos of life feels overwhelming. There will be times when you wake up and wonder why you even bother. And yet you do. You keep going. Why? Where does that resilience come from? What is it within us that refuses to give up, even in the face of overwhelming odds? I think it's hope, but not the naive, surface-level kind of hope that tells us everything will be okay. It's a deeper, grittier kind of hope, the kind that acknowledges the reality of pain and chaos, but chooses to act anyway. It's the kind of hope that says, even if this doesn't make sense now, I will keep going. Even if I never find the answers I'm looking for, I will keep trying. This kind of hope is not about finding meaning. It's about creating it, moment by moment, choice by choice. Let's talk about choice for a moment. It's easy to think of choice as something we only exercise in big, dramatic moments, choosing a career, deciding to end a relationship, moving to a new city. But the truth is, most of our choices are small, almost imperceptible. They happen in the quiet moments, in the decisions we make about how to think, how to feel, how to act. And yet, these small choices accumulate, shaping the trajectory of our lives in ways we often don't realize. Think about the choices you've made today. Not the big ones, but the tiny ones. Did you choose to dwell on your pain, or to focus on something that brings you a moment of peace? Did you choose to hold on to anger, or to let it go? Did you choose to reach out to someone, or to withdraw into yourself? These choices might seem insignificant, especially in the shadow of something as overwhelming as the tragedy you're facing, but they are not. They are the building blocks of your story, and in their own quiet way, they are acts of defiance against the chaos of life. But let me ask you this: what happens when you don't feel like you have a choice? What happens when the weight of your suffering is so heavy that it feels like there's no decision to be made, no path forward? In those moments, it's easy to feel like a victim of life, like someone who is being dragged along by forces they cannot control. And maybe, in some ways, that's true. Life is not always fair. It does not always give us the options we want. But even in those moments, there is still a choice to be made. It might be a small choice, a quiet choice, but it matters. It might be the choice to keep breathing, to take one more step, to hold on for just one more day. And sometimes that is enough. I think about the people who have told you that your tragedy happened for a reason. Maybe they believe it because they've experienced something similar. Maybe they've gone through their own pain and come out the other side with a new perspective, a new sense of purpose. And maybe they're trying to offer you that same perspective, that same hope. But here's the thing: their reasons are not your reasons. Their meaning is not your meaning. What worked for them might not work for you. And that's okay, because the meaning of your life is yours to create, in your own time, in your own way. But let me challenge you with a deeper question: what happens if you choose not to create meaning? What happens if you decide that life is simply random, that there is no deeper purpose, no hidden reason for the things that happen to you? Would that be liberating, or would it be devastating? Would it free you from the burden of trying to make sense of everything, or would it leave you feeling untethered, adrift in a meaningless universe? And if it's the latter, is that something you can live with? Or is meaning so essential to our existence that we cannot survive without it? I don't have the answers to these questions. I don't think anyone does. But I do know this: the act of searching for meaning, even when it feels impossible, is in itself an act of hope. It is a refusal to let chaos have the final word. It is a declaration that even in the face of randomness and uncertainty, we still matter. Our choices still matter. Our stories still matter. So here we are, back at the beginning. The earthquake that destroyed your house, your body, and your sense of security, it didn't happen for a reason. At least not in the way people often mean when they say that. It wasn't part of a plan. It wasn't a test or a lesson or a step on some predetermined path. It was a random event, indifferent to your existence. And yet, here you are, trying to make sense of it, trying to find a reason or to create one. And in doing so, you are proving something extraordinary: that even in the face of chaos, we are capable of creating order. Even in the face of meaninglessness, we are capable of creating meaning. But let me leave you with this question: if the meaning of your life is something you create, not something you find, what kind of creator will you be? Will you build a story that is rooted in hope, resilience, and love? Or will you let the chaos of life dictate the narrative? The choice is yours, and it is a choice you must make over and over again every single day.